from Mehtab, West Bengal, India. Is it permissible to convert a church or a temple into a mosque after that area is conquered by the Muslims? And a similar question of the same category is asked by Munir from London, UK. What are your views regarding Erdogan, the president of Turkey, converting the Hagia Sophia from the status of a museum to that of a mosque? There are two questions asked by the brothers. The first question is that is it permissible in Islam to convert a church or a temple or house of worship of a non-Muslim to a mosque after that land is conquered by the Muslims? The reply to this is yes. There are several hadith and there are several references that it is permissible to convert the house of worship of the non-Muslims to a mosque if the Muslim wants to after they conquer the land. But regarding those places of worship where there is a contract with the non-Muslims, for example, if a non-Muslim has a contract with the Muslims and they have a treaty that we accept you as our rulers, or if the non-Muslim they surrender and they agree to be under the rulership of the Muslims, then these non-Muslims are called as dhimmi. So as far as non-Muslims who are dhimmi, who are protected by the Muslim rulers, in this there's a special condition and a treaty that their lives will be protected by the Muslim rulers, their houses will be protected, their place of worship will be protected. So in such a case where there's a contract between the Muslim ruler, or they have surrendered to the Muslim ruler, or they have invited them to take over from the ruler which is unjust, and if there is a contract and there is no war, in these cases they are called as dhimmi, and the non-Muslim they have to pay a jizya for protection. Under these conditions, the Muslims are supposed to protect the lives of the non-Muslims, their homes, as well as their house of worship. But they cannot build new house of worship which belong to non-Muslims. They cannot expand it, but they can keep it. And here, the Muslims will not touch the house of worship of the non-Muslims. But if the Muslims conquer the land, in this case, it is perfectly permissible for the Muslims to convert it into a mosque. As far as the second question is concerned, that what are my views regarding the issue that has taken place today, and we know that the court has given the verdict and Erdogan, the president of Turkey, has said that the Hagia Sophia, which was a museum, would be reverted back to a mosque. Let me first give you a brief regarding the history of Hagia Sophia so that people who are unaware will know about it, and then I will give my views. As far as Hagia Sophia is concerned, it's a monument which is there for about 1,500 years. It was built by Emperor Justinian I in 537 CE. It took about a few years for him to build, and it was a cathedral of the Greek Orthodox. And it remained a cathedral for several centuries. In 1204, during the Fourth Crusaders, they converted the Greek Orthodox cathedral into a Roman Catholic church until 1261. So initially for 667 years, it was a Greek Orthodox cathedral. Then after that, for 57 years, from 1204 to 1261, for 57 years, it was a Roman Catholic church. Again later on, when the Christian Byzantines came to power, it was again converted back into a Greek Orthodox cathedral until the Ottoman rulers, until Sultan Muhammad Fateh. He conquered Constantinople in 1453. Then it was converted into a mosque. So since 537 up to 1453, for more than 900 years, it remained a Greek Orthodox cathedral. Then for a few years, it was the Roman Catholic Church, then went back to become a Greek Orthodox cathedral, and it was the largest church in the world where it was built. The biggest in-house covering, and the dome was the largest. It remained larger for 1,000 years until 1500 when a new church was made. In 1453, Sultan Muhammad Fateh, he conquers Constantinople, and then there are documents available that he purchases the Hagia Sophia, and after purchasing it, he converts it into a mosque. It remains a mosque till 1931, until Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, he takes over Turkey and he declares it as a secular state. For 4 years it was closed, and he passes a verdict in 1934 that the mosque should be converted into a museum. And since 1935 till today, 2020 July, that's 11th of July, it remained a museum until today. And all these years, for about 85 years, there were many cases saying that why is the Hagia Sophia a museum? Because Atatürk declared it that this is a sign of secularism, that we want to make it into a museum, it will not be a church, will not be a mosque. And since that, there were many cases that have been filed that it is wrong that it was converted into a museum. And recently, the council in Turkey, the highest administrative court, it passed a resolution that it was illegal for Mustafa Kemal Atatürk to convert it into a museum. And today, mashallah, the court of Turkey has given a verdict and has said that it was illegal for Atatürk to convert it into a museum. And alhamdulillah, Erdogan, after the court verdict, he signed a resolution that this structure, Hagia Sophia, which was earlier a church, then became a mosque, then a museum, it will be transferred from the Department of Tourism and it will go to the Department of Religious Authority of Turkey. Now this has created a lot of controversy, and today if you read the newspapers and the media, they are disagreeing with the decision taken by Turkey, by the Turkish government, by Erdogan, and you find right from USA, Trump, Russia, Greece, all of them condemning it is wrong, UNESCO, many non-Muslim organizations, and you find the media that they disagreed, they have been threatened and said it is wrong. But the saddest part, what I read in the media, that there were many Muslim countries and many so-called Muslim dais and Muslim scholars from the Western countries said what Turkey did and what Erdogan did is wrong. And to support their claim, they said that we know in history that Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, he was asked to pray in Jerusalem. He did not pray. He said if he prays there, people make a mosque, and then he prayed somewhere else, and the Masjid Aqsa was made. And all this is about how we encourage and have a relationship. And they quoted the verse of the Quran, Surah Hajj, chapter 22, verse number 40, saying it is not permitted to destroy synagogues or the church, and Quran is against it. And I was shocked to read the views of many of the Muslim guys from the Western countries and from the Arab world, saying it is wrong. What are my views regarding what Turkey did is correct or not, or what Erdogan did is right or wrong? As far as my views are concerned, the hadith quoted and the incidents quoted by the Muslims regarding Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, that he did not pray and he prayed somewhere else, and there were treaties between Muslims and others that your lives are safe and your places of worship are safe and Muslims will not enter your places of worship. All these references are when there is a treaty between the Muslims and the non-Muslims. As I mentioned in the first answer to the first question, that can a holy place, a church or a temple, be converted to a mosque after it is conquered? The answer is yes. Only if there is a treaty between the Muslims and the non-Muslims, or if the non-Muslims surrender, or they are dhimmis, non-Muslim living under the law of the Muslim rule, Islamic rule, that is the only condition where the Muslims give them security and they are paying a jizya. As far as when the Ottoman rulers, when they conquered Constantinople, it was a conquest, it was a war. So it is wrong to give examples of a treaty between the Muslims and non-Muslims and say that same way Turkey should manage it, that's totally wrong. So if there is a conquest, if there is a war, and if the Muslims rule, and this is a common law all over the world, we find so many non-Muslim rulers, when they conquer the land, they occupy the mosque. Many of them demolish the mosque. You have an example of the Crusaders. The best example is Spain. There were hundreds of mosques and most of them were either converted to churches, or they were made into museums, or they were destroyed. Hardly you find there was not a Muslim who could openly give the azan. Why don't people object to that? So this was a normal law that once you conquer, that becomes your land. So once it becomes your land, you have a right to do what you want to do. Later on, after World War I, World War II, then the Geneva Convention, all that is later on. So before that, the rule was once you conquer a land, it becomes part of your land and you can do what you feel is right. So based on that, this was a conquest done by Sultan Muhammad Fateh. And in the conquest, they have a right to keep the house of worship, to convert into a mosque. It is a right, and you find several examples. In fact, if you read the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, I'll give you one incident which I don't want to give it, but to reply to these Muslims who are attacking Turkey and attacking Erdogan, that if we read the seerah of the Prophet, if we know in the seerah of the Prophet, when Muhammad ﷺ migrated to Medina and later on he came back to Makkah, during Fateh Makkah, what did he do? When he came back with about 10,000 Sahabas and it was a victory, the first thing he did was he went to Kaaba, which was the house of worship of the non-Muslims. There were 360 idols in Kaaba. He went in the Kaaba and recited the verse of the Quran from Surah Isra chapter number 17 verse number 81, which says that وَقُلْ جَعَلْ حَقْ وَزَاقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. When truth is hurled against falsehood, falsehood perishes. For falsehood is by its nature bound to perish. And he destroyed all the idols